Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take sometimes dense, complex material and, well, filter it down to the most surprising bits, the actionable knowledge.
Yeah, the core insights.
Exactly. And today, we're definitely moving outside the usual. We're going to explore the, let's say, esoteric side of things, specifically the energetic consequences of final death rites.
Right. We're looking at cremation versus burial, but with a very specific twist.
Yeah, a really astonishing focus on timing. How the timing, when consciousness is in that transition phase, might be incredibly important.
And our sources for this, well, they're pretty unique, aren't they?
Definitely not your standard scientific paper.
No. We're analyzing a transcript from an investigative hypnotic regression. So someone attempting to perceive what happens to the subtle energetic bodies right after death.
And crucially, there's also a piece of meta-commentary with it, something that actually makes us question how reliable this kind of insight even is.
Absolutely. That context is key.
So our mission here isn't to say this is absolutely true. It's more about extracting the specific claims these sources make. How do they describe the mechanics? How might consciousness, ritual, speed, how might they affect what they call the subliminal part of the person who's passed?
Understanding the model they're presenting, essentially.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this.
So the session starts by looking at where cremation might have even come from, esoterically speaking.
Okay.
The initial idea, the basic understanding reported, was that burning the body was, well, thought to help the spirit leave faster than just burying someone.
Like an expedited departure.
Kind of, yeah. A rapid exit strategy, maybe?
But that's not the main point they make, is it? The core finding seems much more technical.
Completely. It really zeroes in on the clock, on timing.
Right. The investigation suggests that if cremation happens too quickly, like just a few hours after death, it causes a problem, a kind of energetic shock.
A detrimental one, yeah. They introduced something we could probably call the 6-day rule.
The 6-day rule.
Yeah. The transcripts suggest waiting at least 6 days. Some sessions even mention up to 30 days.
30? Wow.
I know. But waiting allows for some kind of necessary natural separation process to happen. They describe the outcome as being much lighter for the soul's transition if you respect that time frame.
Why 6 days? I mean, if the person's physically deceased, what's still happening metaphysically that needs that much time?
Well, according to these sessions, the 6 days are needed for the lower energetic bodies to dissolve properly.
Lower energetic bodies.
Yeah, the etheric body, the one closely tied to the physical form, and also the emotional shell. If you cremate too soon, you basically interrupt the natural breakdown and release of these layers.
You cut the process short. And what's the effect of that interruption, according to the source, when the physical anchor is just gone?
The perceived effect is pretty dramatic. They describe it as an immediate cut, like a severing, or a sensation of freezing.
Freezing?
Yeah, or the term they used was arrêt sur image, like pausing on a still frame. The whole energetic process just halts mid-flow.
That sounds quite traumatic, energetically speaking.
Oh.
What are the longer-term consequences for the consciousness, for the deceased?
Well, this rapid forced action is said to cause the subliminal part, that's the bit of consciousness navigating the immediate aftermath, to go into retraction.
Retraction, like pulling inwards.
Exactly. And the result is described as this feeling of intense dryness or deep isolation. Because that natural dissolution didn't happen, the transition becomes much harder. It needs more energetic digestion, as they put it, later on.
And does it leave a lasting impact?
The sources suggest it does. This kind of violent interruption potentially leaves an energetic mark, something that might even impact future incarnations or karma.
Okay, if that's the model, then our typical modern approach, quickly moving the body, isolating it, rushing the process, that seems completely counterproductive from this perspective.
It really does. And that's why these sources put such a strong emphasis on the metaphysical value of having the body watched or tended by family, the traditional vigil, basically.
A vigil? But why? If the energetic bodies are separating, how does just watching the physical body help? What's being transferred?
They suggest it's the link of love. That connection from the family literally nourishes the deceased during those crucial few days of the liberation process.
Nourishes? How?
Think of it like ambient energetic support. That love connection is described as being as strong as when the people are alive. It helps the energetic bodies separate peacefully, smoothly. It's like a protective, sustaining field.
Okay. But what happens in the opposite scenario? When there's no vigil, the body's quickly isolated, maybe rushed off to a facility. What fills that energetic space?
According to the transcripts, if the body's isolated like that, a kind of dark, heavy energy descends around it.
Dark and heavy.
Yeah. And it's described in quite a chilling way, actually, like an absorbing sponge.
Absorbing what?
Ambient energy. It just consumes whatever is available, leaving the subliminal part with this feeling of void or a chasm, an emptiness where that loving support should be.
And this absence, this void, it creates an opening.
That's exactly the implication. This missing energy, this chasm created by the isolation and the rush, it allegedly creates an opportunity.
An opportunity for it. This is where it gets really interesting, isn't it?
It is, because the claim is that this opportunity, this energetic vacuum, is exploited by other entities.
Exploited. So it's not just a negative state, it's active interference.
That's the claim.
Yeah.
This void allows what they call perturbators entities, sometimes identified as egregores or maybe higher-level non-physical beings, to connect.
And do what?
To recover information. Crucial information from the energetic bodies before those bodies get a chance to separate naturally and dissipate their contents. They're essentially intervening in the energetic decomposition.
Okay, hold on. They're harvesting something. If it's information, what kind? What's the commodity here?
It's described as the energy and the codified information about the person's entire life.
The whole life.
Yeah. The process is termed an assèchement, which basically means a drying out. The life force is absorbed. And the key data thereafter, the vibrations they prioritize, correspond to intense human emotions.
Which emotions?
Overwhelmingly, the one they seem to value most, the one that's harvested, is fear.
Fear. So a lifetime's worth of trauma, anxiety, stressful experiences, that becomes a kind of resource.
Exactly. These fear codes, as they're called, are then apparently reused, put into large-scale programs, and then allegedly re-injected into, well, the sources use the term hybrid beings.
Hybrid beings, like what?
They specifically mention reptilians and small gray-type extraterrestrials as the recipients, or maybe users, of this concentrated emotional data.
Okay, wow. Let's just pause there because we've gone from, waiting 6 days for cremation to extraterrestrials recycling fear codes.
It's a huge leap, absolutely.
And given what we know about the source itself, the contamination risk we need to talk about later, how do these transcripts explain the how? How is this fear harvested and then supposedly redeployed? What's the technology?
They describe two main mechanisms. The first is large scale. It involves huge vibratory waves.
Waves?
Yeah, disseminated by what they perceive as artificial intelligence robots, often seen as large geometric cubes. These waves are like broadcasts, carrying these fear codes, supposedly influencing the general human population, maintaining these global programs of control.
Okay, that's the mass broadcast method. What's the second one? You said it sounded more targeted.
It does. That's the implant. They describe physical or maybe physical ethereal implants.
Implants, like chips.
Sort of, but described as small, black, carbon-like squares. Importantly, they're said to be non-metallic.
Meaning they wouldn't show up on an X-ray.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And the purpose of these implants is described as a slow-release program. It constantly distills thoughts of fear, anxiety, paranoia directly into the person's mind.
Like a localized drip feed of dread.
Exactly. Allowing for widespread influence,
Yeah.
but on an individual level, too.
And the entities running the show, the chiefs, as the source called them, are they physically present during the cremation or harvesting?
The sources clarify that. Rapid cremation might actually scare off the low-level entities, the ones feeding directly on the immediate decay energy.
Okay.
But the higher-level chiefs, they don't need to be physically close. They use what are described as energetic strings, like a puppeteer.
Thanks.
Yeah, maintaining their length through the remaining energetic bodies, even after the physical is gone. This ensures the subliminal part stays interfered with, stays accessible for this harvesting long after the body's destruction.
Right. It's a lot. Which brings us to mitigation. If the situation isn't ideal, maybe someone dies alone or the family is unaware and rushes, they're protective factors. Things that can still help ensure a cleaner transition, according to this model.
Yes, there are. Two main factors seem to provide a kind of energetic sovereignty.
Okay, what are they?
First, if the person who died had what the source calls high consciousness, or alternatively, if they make a very conscious, informed choice beforehand to be cremated.
So if they knew about this potential issue and chose cremation anyway.
Or just had a high level of spiritual awareness in general. In those cases, the process is seen as largely okay, metaphysically. The awareness, or the conscious choice itself, acts as a kind of shield.
So high consciousness is almost like a bypass. You don't need the external ritual or the perfect timing quite as much.
That seems to be the idea. High consciousness allows the individual to manage their own energetic separation effectively. They're already sort of connected to the information they need for the transition.
And what about people who maybe didn't have that high level of awareness? What helps them if they lack a vigil?
That's where the link of love from close people becomes absolutely critical again.
Why is that love link so vital for someone less consciously prepared?
Because it apparently helps the deceased connect information that they didn't manage to access or process during their physical life.
So the vigil, or just strong loving thoughts, acts like a knowledge transfer.
Essentially, yes. Guiding the subliminal part through the steps of dissolution that it maybe didn't figure out how to program for itself while alive.
Okay, so let's quickly sum up the comparison. Based purely on these claims, what's the metaphysical difference between traditional burial and cremation?
Right. Classic earth burial is viewed as a very natural process. The body relies on the earth, and the earth energy is seen as inherently rich and supportive for that decomposition.
But there's a catch.
There is. That benefit is apparently negated if the body's heavily insulated, sealed in plastic bags inside the coffin or in those heavy metal-lined caskets. That cuts off the connection to the earth's energy.
Makes sense within the model. And cremation, assuming the timing is right, the 6-day window is respected.
Cremation, if timed correctly, is judged to have a similar positive outcome for the subliminal part, comparable to a natural burial.
But is it identical?
Not quite. The sources suggest the ambiance of cremation, because it involves fire and rapid destruction, still retains a certain energetic coldness compared to the more nurturing quality of the earth burial.
Okay, now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, especially when we hear claims about AI cubes and reptilians harvesting fear, it feels absolutely essential that we talk about the source's own warnings.
Yes, this is critical context. The source material includes really important meta-commentary about how unreliable a single session of this kind of investigative hypnosis actually is.
So the source itself tells you not to necessarily trust everything it says.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It emphasizes that these claims, while incredibly detailed, come through a process with a very high risk of contamination.
Contamination, how?
The session uses this great analogy. Imagine trying to communicate underwater using just your vocal cords. And you're trying to talk to someone who speaks a different language, and you're both misinterpreting each other's gestures.
So information gets incredibly distorted.
Severely distorted. It's traveling across dimensions, allegedly, and it has to go through the mental filter, the beliefs, the culture, the language limits of the person under hypnosis.
So we absolutely cannot take any single detail like the 6-day rule or the AI cubes as pure, unfiltered fact. We're filtering a filter.
Precisely. The source is quite explicit. A single session is often misleading. It can even be counterproductive because you latch onto the noise, not the signal. The real signal, they suggest, is tiny.
How tiny?
To get reliable information, they claim you need thousands of sessions, done by many different people, looking for the tiny overlaps, the data that consistently shows up across the vast majority of experiences.
Thousands. And what percentage do they estimate is actually reliable from any given session?
They estimate that truly reliable, cross-session validated data might only be about 2 or 3% of what someone perceives in one go.
2 or 3%. So 97% could just be noise, interference, the hypnotized person's own subconscious projections.
Exactly. Which raises the huge question, how do you distinguish? How do you separate the potentially real core mechanic, like maybe the importance of timing, the energetic shock, from the highly specific, maybe culturally influenced details, like identifying entities specifically as reptilians or visualizing the tech as AI cubes?
That's the absolute dilemma, isn't it? The shared thread across multiple independent sessions might point to something fundamental. The timing, the need for conscious separation, the harm of sudden shock.
Right, those feel like core mechanics.
But the really specific, vivid details, the names of the aliens, the look of the tech, that sounds exactly like where an individual's own mind, their reading, their beliefs would likely color the perception.
It's highly probable the timing and the love link could be part of that 3%, maybe. The specific creatures and cubes might be the 97% filter.
Which means the most practical insight here isn't necessarily about fighting off space entities.
Probably not, no.
But it's more about personal responsibility and intention, right? Regardless of the more dramatic claims.
Absolutely. The source itself despite all the wild details, keeps coming back to the idea that the process is highly dependent on the individual's choice, their state of consciousness, and the intention of their loved ones. It's less about what happens to the body burned or buried, and more about the how and the why from an energetic and intentional standpoint.
So what does this all mean for us listening to this?
Well, this deep dive really reveals that, according to these specific esoteric sources, the ultimate outcome, spiritually speaking, seems to hinge far less on the method itself, cremation versus burial, and much more on the timing.
That crucial window.
Yeah, the timing, the presence of genuine loving intention from others.
Vigil energy.
Right. And maybe most critically, the conscious, informed choice made by the individual before they pass. It really seems to put the agency back into the hands of the dying person and their family.
And if we take that most provocative claim seriously, just for a moment, the idea that large-scale fear codes are somehow harvested and recycled, then making a conscious, informed choice about your own end-of-life process, especially timing it correctly, if this model holds any water, to ensure a clean, energetic separation that could almost be seen as a final act of energetic sovereignty.
Resisting that alleged system of control.
Exactly. It's a powerful thought to leave you with. Even in death, perhaps especially in death, your intention, your choices, they might still matter profoundly.